have the great honor of being the last lecturer of our course, so thank you. I think I've learned a lot, and I'm trying and hoping that I will still manage to capture your attention, especially after the big lunch that we had. So today I will be talking about building mutual confidence and independence in communication in multicultural classrooms, but we will see that this really translates to all kinds of classrooms. So we start off with building mutual confidence. This is really important, especially in a classroom setting, both between student and teacher, but also between students themselves, between peers. And we can think of confidence as based on certain aspects, like trust being one of the most important. And we define trust as the belief that the person you trust is being honest and sincere and would not do anything to hurt you intentionally. So what happens when there is mutual respect? This means that everybody is valued for who they are, and we respect the differences, like we heard from Marina, that it's really important to be aware of them and to keep that in mind, not to throw the fish away. Yes, and to celebrate diversity in the classroom. So as instructors, as professors, we should create an environment where students trust each other, feel confident about opening up, about asking questions, about giving their point of view, and also be respectful of their peers and listen actively, and even if they don't agree, not have a fight. So in the end, we get a classroom atmosphere where students feel safe, motivated, and respected. So how do we do this? I'm an engineer, so I need strict guidelines, okay? So we can start by setting clear expectations. I don't know if some of my colleagues from the other groups of yesterday and the day before, we had those scenarios that we had to discuss, and a lot of the times the students in the classroom were frustrated because they didn't really understand what was expecting of them, what a leader should do. So always state your expectations clearly, especially as a professor. You have to, you know all this, to respect what you say about grading, about evaluation, how that happens. So foster open communication. Always invite your students to give their opinion, especially if there are some students who are a bit shyer or maybe don't really feel like they want to be part of the group. Like Sisa told us, 400 students, you're going to always be happy that nobody's going to ask you to do anything. But then you should try and get involved. Build a supportive environment. This means always be there for your students, even outside of the class hours, but during office hours. We have in Romania certain hours where we can interact with the students. They can come ask us questions if they are having difficulties during the coursework. Show consistency and fairness. This means that if you want them to be respectful, you should also be respectful of them, but if you want them to meet their deadlines, you should also meet your deadlines. And regarding consistency, I have a short little story. In the first year, I teach chemistry, so there's a lot of students, and most of them do not really love chemistry. And so in order to get them involved, I always tell them that throughout the semester, I will be asking some questions that are bonus questions to the exam. So they might be general knowledge questions, they might be something like a logic question. We do the theory, and then I ask them, how would you apply this in your day-to-day life? What would you find in your kitchen that is similar to these substances? And always I tell them that I will give points if they manage to ask me something that I do not know the answer to. So that's always gets them perked up, and they always want to be the ones who catch the teacher out. And I have had certain questions like that, so when they ask me and I don't know, I tell them, okay, so that's a new one. Let me think on it and we'll discuss it next week. And most of them are very surprised the next week when I start my lecture with, oh, so you know that question from last time? I figured it out, let's discuss, and they're, oh, I nearly forgot about that, oh, okay. So, be consistent. Also, regarding fairness, you should, of course, apply the same rules to everyone, but you should maybe make some amendments if somebody is battling some personal issues and be there for them. Provide constructive feedback, and it should always be timely feedback, so not after a month. Promote mutual respect whenever you have the opportunity. Facilitate self-reflection and growth, and this is towards your students, but it can be also very helpful to do it for yourself and to think back on what works and what doesn't work and maybe do some adjustments. Build a sense of community, especially in multicultural classrooms. That's very difficult, but also I think we see that a lot in our first year students. We have just discussed this yesterday, and we can see the changes in groups. They don't really form the relations they used to. If you ask somebody, hey, is Paul your colleague? I don't know Paul, even though maybe they sat next to each other. So it takes a really long time for them to make connections nowadays, whereas a few years ago it seemed like they were a lot closer. So we can help with that. Provide an opportunity for leadership, because that will make them work well in a team. They can discuss their own understanding of what the leader is, how to act as leader, how to be led by a colleague, and address issues promptly whenever they arise. Be there, make them know that you are somebody they can depend on. So, if you are building this sense of trust, it will lead to a good communication. Now, communication by itself, we have heard a lot about it, and I'm here to discuss more about the independence in communication, and this stems from an independence in thinking. So, a lot of the time, it's easier to just follow what the teacher tells you mechanically and not really give your input. So independence in communication is defined as the ability to communicate anything on any topic to anyone, which, as you can see, is a very narrow definition that really doesn't cover anything. But it's said that an independent communicator is not limited in what they can talk about and whom they can talk to. It also means they don't need outside intervention in order to help them communicate, which is what we aim to. So for example, if our students are doing a group project, we shouldn't always be there to interrupt and suggest, and so they can have a good communication. So for us as teachers, when we are thinking about how to do a talk, of course we have to identify the main topics, identify what the level of knowledge is between the respondents to the message, and to adjust our talk regarding that. So of course, we never teach the same course twice, because it's always going to be to different people and the adjustments will be made. So, another aspect I would like to discuss is the differences between independence in communication and interdependence in communication. So we want to foster both of these in our students. On the one hand, independence in communication would be maybe developing self-reliance. So your student will go and look for their own research data for a project or for a thesis. They can answer questions from their peers without looking to the teacher for help. And then we also should look for autonomy in problem solving, which is something that our students don't really have. They never really try to solve their problems on their own. They're always asking their teacher to do it for them, because of course it's easier that way. Time management is another thing. It's really important, and I really appreciate those students who ask for an extension of their deadline ahead of time. So obviously not the night before, like, oh, sorry, I didn't finish it. But if they tell me beforehand, oh, I have 3 projects and they're all due on the same day, could I please maybe make a change with another group or something? That means that they are thinking ahead and they are allocating time for each task. So that's a good thing. And also just preparing for the exams, making their plan and how to study, what to study is also a sign of independence in communication. So interdependence, on the other hand, also very valuable, means they learn how to collaborate, how to share information effectively. By forming study groups, they can also help each other learn, and I think it's one of the ways you understand the subject the best is when you have to explain it to somebody else. So that's also a good thing. Team building, team-based projects are also about solving problems together, and regarding academic networking, this is mostly about, for us PhD students are the ones who are mostly going to conferences, but we encourage our students to do public speaking, to go share their ideas, to go see other people sharing their ideas, because it's also a way to build networks. And then group presentations are also important because they learn to divide the content between themselves, they rehearse together, and even the support during the presentations. We saw all of the groups talking about their university now, and we were all helping each other out. So, you know, it applies for all ages. Okay, so just to give a bit of a background, I will be giving a case study at the end just to show how independence in communication was established, or to what degree it was established in a PhD course, but just to talk a bit about, to reach independence in communication, you need to have a strategy for collaborative learning, the interdependence, you know, and collective action. And this means you have to have some features like the ability to direct and coordinate team activities, the ability to assess performance, to work well in a team, and just to be adaptable to different tasks. This is mostly done by having or establishing mutual confidence, mutual trust, and always having a closed loop communication, therefore giving the feedback, taking sense of the feedback, and then making adjustments. And you can have different levels of independence. We don't expect our bachelor students to have a really high level of independence in communication, but it needs to start with that. They're usually more reproductive. But from masters and PhD students, we expect them to find novel ways to deal with their problems and to come up with ways of communicating. So the level of independence is according to activities, and for these productive creative elements, the challenges for multicultural groups can be the fact that they are coming from different backgrounds. And this doesn't necessarily mean, especially for engineering students, you don't expect them to have different information, because chemistry is chemistry and math is math. But the way it has been taught can be very different. For example, we used to have, and we still do in Romania, a lot of theory-based information. Our students don't see actual sulfuric acid by the time they come to university, whereas others are making experiments, watching, seeing how it interacts, how it smells, what it looks like. So it's very different. You know, you have the information, but the way you have learned about it, very different. And multicultural education, therefore, has to consider the specific competencies, so a sportive spirit, flexibility, empathy, and so on. I think for a multicultural classroom, you should have a really well-structured plan. It's easier to follow. But you still need to allow conversation and not just unidirectional as I'm doing right now. We will see how we applied this in a case study. This was basically at the interdisciplinary doctoral school on engineering topics at the Transilvania University where I'm from. Our trainees were the PhD students first year, and they are learning both specific but also common subjects. So some of the commons are for example, ethics and academic integrity, English language and sciences, how to valorize your research results, and finally the one I'm going to talk about, management of research projects. So how to write a good project that is going to be funded. And this particular case is from last year, so actually the year before that, 22-23. We had students that were from very different faculties, as you can see here: mechanical engineering, industrial engineering, materials engineering, electronic and electrical, forestry, and product design and environment. So a lot, they were very different, but they would all have to learn to write a good project proposal. The syllabus consists of 6 hours of lectures and 6 hours of applications, and the application really consists of analyzing and discussing the activity plan of the PhD project. So they are supposed to look at their PhD program as a potential project that is being funded. And of course or maybe this is not really a general topic, but for our students, they just decide they want a PhD. They don't really decide on what. They go and see what teachers are offering, they choose their teacher, and that's going to be their topic. So it's not really, oh my God, my whole life I wanted to study this field and I'm going to choose that. So the syllabus, very shortly, it deals with the financial resources where you can apply. It talks a little bit about what a project is, what project management implies. Of course, it does the needs analysis. Why are you doing your PhD program? Because it's not to get a diploma, it's to solve a problem, of course. And then the activity plan, how to run your project in time, what costs you should be associating with the activities, the monitoring stage, and the risks analysis. So we had 24 foreign students. They were coming from 13 countries, and apart from the Cubans, who came as a whole battalion, the other ones were pretty much just 1 or 2. So it was truly multicultural. And here you can see that they are coming also from different areas and faculties. So again, it was very difficult to say that they have a lot of points in common. So the aim, of course, was to do the task, but also to develop independence in communication based on mutual confidence. And the lecture's content had a more general feature, and then each lecture ended with a specific homework task. And this needed to be done by the students individually, because of course they each are coming from a different PhD program. So the first homework asked the students to identify either the European priority or the local, the national Romanian priority that best would fit their topic, to formulate the aim, the objectives of their project, and this is pretty much just a very short homework. They were given very clear instructions how to save their documents, how to send them, by which date and by which time. And then we got the homeworks, and this is what we found. Even though the homework was quite short and it listed very clearly what they needed to do, students were not really well prepared to answer specific tasks. Namely, they tended to use a lot of nice words that didn't really say anything. There was also a difficulty in formulating clear numerical results because they were not used to being evaluated on, you are going to publish these many papers, you are going to look for this many conferences or something like that. It was all very... there is a lack of correspondence between the aim and the objectives. There were objectives that were stating much more than the aim or much less. And then the most problematic issue, let's say, is a deficiency in the English language. And this poses challenges in the classroom because maybe they are not really understanding the information you are providing correctly, or they think they do, but they are not. So feedback is really, really important at that point, asking for feedback, giving feedback. But also when they are writing, if the English is not very good, then it can lead to sometimes hilarious mistakes. So the overall problem was the fact that they just quickly finished their homework, sent it. They didn't really sit and think about this. They didn't reread their answers. Also, some general observations, I would say, is the fact that only 18 students out of 24 sent in their homework, perhaps thinking that it wasn't so important, or perhaps thinking they could do it later. They didn't follow the deadlines. So one might say this is a lack of respect. Each homework was individually analyzed afterwards, and a lot of feedback was given, personalized feedback, because everybody had sent in different homeworks, everybody got different answers. This required a lot of time, but the students were really appreciative to see their work being looked over so intensely. And afterwards, at the next meeting, all of these suggestions were discussed as a group, and each of the students at the end could ask questions about other people's works as well as about their own, and this increased the knowledge gained at that moment. Further on, students were invited to analyze the feedback and make corrections. And then the second part of the course, the second homework, was just to move further on to decide the activity plan. So you need your objectives, activities, results, and then a Gantt chart was also asked. And again, we had deadlines, very strict, and also because there was not a really cohesive answer from the students, a strong recommendation was made for them to go and discuss with their supervisor what their PhD program is going to look like, why they are studying what they are studying, how long each of their classes is going to take. So these are information that we did not expect them to already know, or to maybe they can make some ideas about it, but a discussion could really be useful. So what we found out was the fact that afterwards, the second homeworks were a lot better because of the feedback. They already knew what was expected of them. They really knew how to formulate things. They followed the suggestions. And the people who had not yet sent in their first homework and did so now, you could see the difference between them, right? So feedback was really, really important here. There were also some very punctual, let's say, issues that were addressed, and this was happening to all of them, but it was not so important. The main issue, however, is the fact that students, and you could tell this, they did not follow the recommendation of talking to their supervisor. Maybe they were intimidated, maybe they didn't have the time, but you could see that this was a recommendation that was not followed. They thought they could do it on their own. This time there were 21 students out of 24 who handed in their homework. The other 3 their supervisor was notified so they could get involved. And I think some of the other observations I have already discussed. Finally, the knowledge assessment. So the grading was told at the very beginning what was going to be graded and how much each of these things was going to count towards their final grade. They could again make improvements, and again it was suggested that they speak to their supervisor, and some of them at this point did follow this suggestion, and some of them also wrote back that even though they tried to get in contact with their supervisor, they couldn't, or he gave very vague answers, and so there were some issues in communication there. So finally, the results were in. Their grades were in between 6 and 9. 10 is the best grade in Romanian. There was no, let's say, perfect homework submitted, and this can be linked to the fact that there was some lack in communication with the supervisor. There was also some challenges in the English language, so the information was not stated clearly at the end of the homework, and there is also a limited, let's say, will for the students to put in more effort. And this is also something that we related to the fact that in that year, no possibility for grant funding was actually available in Romania, so they didn't have that motivation, that extra motivation. It was just purely, let's say, a joke homework to be done, whereas in other years they would really, really invest a lot to get the funding. The main thing we noticed from this is that a closer interaction between the students and their PhD supervisor is really, really important, especially in the very beginning of the PhD program, because sometimes the first few months, maybe an adjustment period, and it's sort of like, if he doesn't ask me to do something, I won't ask anything. But a close communication is vital, and it sets the what am I looking for? The road ahead. Let's go with that. Okay. So as conclusions, I tried to go really fast on that. So in conclusion, when planning and implementing the didactic strategy for teaching in a multicultural environment, the distinct features of the students group have to be considered, but again, you also have to be really fair with everyone. The discussion focused on the PhD students that were first years at Transilvania University, and it showed at the end that although there was the opportunity to let's say, build trust between them by giving their opinions and listening to others and seeing how others work, there was still a limited independence and communication achieved at the end. It is essential to deliver knowledge and support skills to enhance the independence and communication, and this could also be done by encouraging public speaking. It can be done at a lower level, just when the whole group is there, and to foster these communication, this dialogue, but it could also happen by encouraging the students to talk publicly in conferences, let's say. So mutual confidence between the PhD supervisor and the PhD student has to be really considered to build confidence and to avoid any preconceived ideas in order to get a good relationship there. The results recorded for the group of foreign students that were in this subject, were following the subject, was also analyzed comparatively to the Romanian students who had their course in Romanian, so that helped a lot, and also the Romanian students sometimes were not really all that involved because they were also working, whereas the foreign students were always there wholeheartedly. Right, so independence in communication should be seen as independence in thinking, and this is something we struggle with a lot with our students, trying to provoke them, to make them think on their own, to have new ideas, to follow through on those ideas, to not be shy about expressing them, to always know that no questions are bad questions, which usually there are not. And finally, to build this type of confidence, it requires a well-organized activity. You need to specify targets and deadlines and to respect them, but also as a teacher to respect those deadlines that you yourself impose by giving the feedback in a timely manner. So that was the presentation for today. You have some references here and some questions to ponder in your own time regarding your multicultural classrooms. So which path do you consider best suited for training the students to get independence in communication and independence in thinking? On average, how long does it take for a group of students to become independent in communication? And how would you estimate the level where they are at? And also, which are the main disadvantages of not getting full mutual confidence, because that's also really, really important. So with that, thank you very much.